Welcome to Against Medical Advice. I'm your host, Jimmy Diamond. The identity and location of the following recording has been changed to protect the anonymity and confidentiality of the clients. The views and opinions of speaker do not directly reflect those of the podcast. The following is a live recording of real people struggling with addiction and trying to seek recovery. This is for educational purposes only. We hope you enjoy. When talking about the, nobody's read the Triangle of Self-Obsession. It's an information pamphlet available at 12-step meetings of like NA, and it basically talks about how we get self-absorbed in our own emotions and make decisions that go against our morals. It's like it's in response to three different emotions, okay? Three different circumstances, we'll say. So when the circumstances occur, we have three different responses, and these are negative responses. And I'm giving you this key just because it's a fast track to understanding fourth step. That's the best way that I can do it. And this is like a lot of what you see in here, we're going to talk about in fourth step. So we have responses that are negative to situations in our life. And this is the way you want to draw it. Now, I highly encourage people to go get this information pamphlet, read it, print it out. It's one page, really easy read. It goes through people who respond like this, how they have problems, and people who do not respond like this and don't have problems. They say that addicts respond this way and to the world around them and seek things outside of themselves to fix things that are inside of themselves. And as a result of that, they kind of rely on the world to fix their problems instead of themselves fixing their problems. And what they say is that discovery of you don't need things outside of yourself to fix what's inside of yourself is a natural process, and we do not go through that process. And as a result of that, these things occur. And how do we get out of these things? There's three answers on the opposite. So the negative responses.
And this is called the Triangle of
Self-Obsession. Yep. We have the past, the present, and the future. So in response to situations, and this is mostly us thinking, or whatever the case may be, or right on, hands-on, these are our negative responses to the past, present, and future that leave us trapped in the triangle of self-obsession. This is resentment, which is our response to the past, anger, which is our response to the present, and fear, which is our response to the future. Okay? This is a class we're going to talk about, and this is a class we're going to talk about. Okay? That's why I think like you should check this out. You know what I'm saying? So one page read, you can print it out, you can Google it, you can read it on your phone, like super easy, okay? Now, the answers in response to, or the ways to respond to the past, present, and future to be outside of the triangle of self-obsession would be with one, to the past, acceptance, present, love, and future, faith. And these are the positive ways to respond to the past, present, and future.
First one under resentment, under negative.
Resentment, anger, and fear. And the opposite would be acceptance, love, and faith. And I usually do I'll do it in here. This is like a small little like example of how you may see this in your everyday living. And this is just an example of how I have practiced this in my everyday living. I used to mop floors, you know, clean bathrooms and shit like that. When I was in recovery, working in treatment. That was like my first job. BHT, UAs, cleaning toilets and stuff like that, mopping the floors. And I always had to mop. Never understood that. Why I always had to mop. You got a bunch of other perfectly good techs who are probably really good at mopping too, why do I have to mop the floor? Do I look like a mopper? You know what I mean? Is that who I am? Why not have Kelsey mop? Why not have Corey mop? Why do I have to mop? So it's like a kind of resentment towards I'm always the mopper. This is just a constant thing, you know? And there's always the time of day when I get asked to mop. Usually around 3 p.m. You know? You get asked to mop, and someone comes up and says, all right, Jimmy, the clients are gone. You're going to mop the floors. And I would get angry. You ever seen someone angrily mop floors? Yeah. You know? Right, you've done it, right? And it's like, I used to sit there, I'd be resentful. I'd be like, man, here it comes, fucking 3 o'clock, right around the corner. Every single day, they ask me. They don't ask Corey. They don't ask anyone else. You know what I mean? They always ask me. And then here it comes. Here we go. And then she has to, yeah, sure, I'll mop the floors. You know what I mean? My sarcastic, that thing, you know what I'm saying? As I'm mopping the floors, I may be angry. What might be a sign that I'm angry about mopping the floors that is not me saying, I'm angry about mopping the floors?
Your face.
Body language things.
The
Puffing
way
and
you're,
puffing.
the way that you mop.
Yeah.
Mopping.
Hey, can you make an announcement real quick?
Yes.
So y'all aren't going on breaking.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Hello, how you guys doing?
Hello.
Resource.
Now, I may be huffing and puffing. I may be mopping like aggressively. You know, when I get in this state, the smallest thing that goes wrong with the mop is just this huge thing. You know what I mean? I start, this is stupid fucking thing. You know? And while I'm mopping, you know what I think about? Is this my life? Is this what my life is? Mopping floors. I got fucking sober to mop floors in a bathroom. I got someone telling me that the toilet paper's not stocked. Is this what my fucking life is gonna be like because I made these decisions? That's the fear. I'ma stay in this forever. And you know what that makes me do? Gets me so scared to the point that instead of me letting this become my life, I tell my boss to go fuck yourself. Mop your own fucking floors, bucko. And then I make the decision, I leave, and the reality of my decision sets in. And I cry. And I think about how am I going to pay these bills? What am I going to do? What a dumb decision. I could have used that money.
Or the reference.
Huh?
Or the reference.
Or the reference. Yeah. Please give me a reference. Now, when I have also been in situations where I'm mopping floors and I don't mind. In recovery. Okay? Now, dude, this is just a totally different understanding. Same whole circumstance, but every way I'm viewing it is different. I remember viewing myself as the best. If I'm gonna mop these floors, they're gonna be the best floors you've ever seen in your entire life. What's up? You know what I mean? I am the mopper. And I would sing while I'm mopping, and I would have fun while I'm mopping, and I wouldn't get resentment. I would accept this is my job. If I don't like it, I can get another job. I'm the one who continually does this. If I don't like it, I can do something different. Anyone can pay me to mop floors, dude. Okay? So why do I have to get so angry and bitter over a job that I sign up for and I show up to every day, right? So I can accept that this is my job. And I'll tell you what, I can also accept that this is not going to be my job forever. I can have faith in the future that like, hey, this is just a stepping stone. Mopping floors is just the beginning of where I'm going to be. And I can mop these floors happily saying, man, I'm not going to be mopping floors forever. This isn't what it's going to be. I'm gonna be. This is gonna sound crazy. But I'm gonna be somebody someday. You know what I mean? I'm gonna fucking do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna own my own facility. I'm gonna do whatever. I'm gonna help people. And you just think I'm some mopper. That's cool. That's not my problem that you think I'm some mopper. That's your problem that you don't see potential in me. You know, I love myself. I love the job I do. I love the way I perform, and I really enjoy this part of my life because this is a major part. This is like the beginning of like the incredible journey, you know? And when I am in that state of mind, other people benefit from it. Other people are like, wow, I want to hang out with Jimmy. It's weird, you know what I mean? But when I'm bitter and angry, people are like, oh shit, he's mopping the floors. And they go back to their desk. Yes.
So if it's your lack of free will, what shifts the perspective for you? Like what
Hope.
different? Okay.
Hope for the future. That's that second step.
Okay.
You know, like, I remember looking at myself and being like, yo, this is where everybody starts. You know what I mean? This isn't where everybody ends, but this is where everybody starts. You know, like everybody kind of starts. You got to learn somehow, you know? So it's kind of like I took it out of the immediate moment and put the perspective on like the whole story, you know what I mean? And this is a part of my story. It's not my story. It's not like the whole story, you know what I mean?
Was that in subsequent treatments? Like, so that initially it was like, I don't want to mop, and then was it chronological or just like?
It was more like, yeah, I guess it was chronological. Yeah. And I would say that that's probably as a result of like, I had switched jobs, you know, I was at a new company. I was afraid when I had this new shift, I had taken a job, like I had been fired from a job, and then within that same week got a new job making like the same amount of money, doing something I like with people who I knew, you know? So, could be the environment, there could be a lot to it, but when I was in that time, it was just like, I just had more hope. That's pretty much what it boils down to. It was like, I was like, all right, maybe I can grow in this company. Maybe I can have potential in this company, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world if I lose a job, you know what I mean? Maybe it's not the end of the world if something like bad happens to me. And if I remain angry and bitter from like what had happened to me, it could stunt my potential of where I'm going to be. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I also saw like everything just started becoming connected. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, I don't want to burn this bridge. You know what I mean? Like, I've burned so many fucking bridges in the past by just getting resentful and angry and telling them to go fuck themselves, that I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? So how do I start doing that? I can't carry what I had in the last relationship into this relationship. You see what I'm saying? Even with like my career. And I kind of had to like let that shit go. And the way I left the last company was not a fucking pretty way. And I had to kind of like say, you know what? Give it time. That will all mull over. You gotta be happy. You gotta be positive. You gotta be there for these clients. And all of that will slowly disappear. And the more that you're a good person, the more that's gonna shine. And like I had to focus on that with this new opportunity, new career, like new place, new everything, you know? And that's maybe subconsciously what was happening under that level, you know? I was being driven to the job interview, you know what I mean? I didn't even have a fucking car at the time. And it was like, I didn't know how I was gonna do it. I just had to get that part figured out, and the rest will get figured out, you know? Any other questions? Now that's the triangle of self-obsession. Now why do I bring that up? Because today we're talking about this. Resentment. And where on the triangle of self-obsession do resentments lie? And that is a negative view on the past. That's as simply as I can put it. If you're writing, write that down. Resentments are a negative view on the past. If you are thinking of something that happened to you in your life and it's negative, gotta change that. Like, gotta try to do whatever you can to make that positive. And some people may be looking back at their resentments and saying, there is absolutely zero way that you could turn this into a positive. There's none. And I'm here to tell you that view is a product of limitations as a result of drugs and alcohol, or the environment we grew up in, or whatever the case may be. Okay? Open your mind, expand your mind. I fucking really, really, really encourage you to just in this group, you just gotta be like you authentically. Like when I ask you questions, you can't be like, Jimmy's gonna do something with this. You know what I mean? There can't be none of that. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just gotta be honest. You just gotta literally allow the process to do its own thing. And part of that comes from practicing the first 3 steps, right? 1, admitting I'm powerless over my resentments and that my life can become unmanageable if I keep on hanging on to these. 2, there has to be some way of me to look at this from a way that I can benefit from, that I can actually become a good person. I don't need to be held back from it. And 3 is, do I keep on going this way of a cycle of anger, self-pity, or maybe both? Or do I go this way? And actually, maybe there is a different way of viewing this. Maybe there is a way I can overcome it. You see what I'm saying? And that's why, going back to steps 1, 2, and 3, major requirement, some people, they say, all right, I'll do it. I'll do the steps. Let's do it. And then we start with, okay, we're doing 4th step. After they do 1, 2, and 3, let's start with our resentments. And they're like, nah, I'm all done. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we're a personal trainer, blah, blah, blah. I want to lose weight. I want to do this. Okay, first step, give me 100 push-ups. What? No. You know, so that could be a response that we feel to this, but I'm telling you, that is a natural emotional response. Before we even jump into resentments, and what's going to happen is I'm going to kind of have you guys write down your resentments. We'll talk a little bit about them, and then we're going to begin the process or whatever. And if you want to do a full inventory on your resentments, you can just run this process through all of them, and you'll just develop patterns. But before we do that, I kind of want to talk about resentments, do a little bit of education on them, understand them a little bit more. Through that process, you're going to kind of go through the process of understanding solution and all that, but just having to discuss them to begin with. Now, what you'll see is, last week, we were talking about emotion over intelligence. And we want to switch these over. So what we're going to see in talking about our resentments are times in which our emotions trumped our intelligence. So let's go back to what an emotion actually is before we start talking about any specific emotion like resentment, okay? That way you can allow yourself to feel acceptance over it, okay? This emotion we're talking about today is a resentment. None of these markers, dude. Resentment is a bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. Bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. Bitter indignation having been treated unfairly. Let me tell you what indignation means. Anybody know what indignation means?
Kind of like disgust.
Disgust?
Like you can't
Yeah, like
believe
you're just like, you
like
put it down. And
self-justified.
yeah.
It's like,
You're just indignant.
Yeah.
You're just stubborn, mean.
she got indignant.
Yeah, that's it, right?
It's like pretty bad.
Anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived to be unfair treatment. Now, I'm telling you, once you start defining things, I'm going to repeat it. I'm sorry.
No, I can't even.
This one?
Yes, I can.
Okay. That says bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. When you start to learn and define things, the second layer of definition is where you go deep. I had no idea what indignation meant when I first read this definition. So in order for me to develop a full understanding of its meaning, I need to understand what that word means. And when you understand what indignation means, you really get a grip on resentment. And that's where we're going to begin talking about resentments. Indignation is anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived to be unfair treatment. So there's two key words in that definition. And by the way, these are just Webster definitions. So if you're ever wanting to write them down again or look them up later because your handwriting is worse than mine, which is unlikely, you can surely go on Google and just type in indignation definition.
I sat on the keyboard.
Oh shoot.
Unfair treatment.
Yep, unfair treatment. So indignation is anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived to be unfair treatment. Let's first talk about provoked. Go ahead. Right? When you think of someone provoking you, what do you think of?
Somebody jabbing their finger in me.
Fucking poking at you, right? Go ahead. That's what I imagine. If someone's provoking me, they're pushing my buttons. They're intentionally jabbing at me. So this anger or annoyance, just annoyed, it's this provoked by something. Something is poking me. Something just tapping at you. And it's annoying or it's angry. It's making me annoyed or angry. And keep in mind, it's perceived to be unfair treatment. It's just my perception. It could be fair treatment. I'll tell you, when I first started doing my resentments, I had a bunch of ex-girlfriends on there that cheated on me, and when I really got down to it, I was like, shit, man, I would have cheated on me too. You kidding me? What the fuck do I think what am I thinking? In the moment, it's perceived as unfair treatment, but perhaps it's fair. Some of them, I cheated on them. Some of them, I just wasn't treating people the way that they should be being treated, And I'm angry for the outcome. But it's dude.
Self-absorbed.
Yo! Right? Now, yes.
I'm having a hard time because most of the resentments I have toward myself, I don't really choose to blame anyone for my actions or what was happening with me. So that's why I'm having a hard time, pointing any one person and saying I resent them.
Well, it
Because
doesn't
it was all
necessarily
my-
have to be people.
It was all my shit.
Yes.
It wasn't, anybody else's shit.
Put it on there.
Okay.
You should be on that list. Because a lot of people, resentments towards themselves prevent them from changing in areas that are required. You see what I'm saying? We have, some people put themselves on there, some people put God on there. Some people you can put anyone on there. There's no limit, Objects, institutions, ideas. Some people resent ideas. When the idea is provoked onto them, you should do this, you should do that, how about you do this? They're angry and annoyed. How about you don't tell me to do something? You know what I mean? And that's indignation. That's God, I wish they would shut the fuck up type of thing, yes.
One of the other ways that helps me to think about it when I struggle with the word resentment is what am I struggling to forgive? And
Yeah.
that helps me sometimes shift the focus on what haven't I been able to kind of let go of in my heart that I can't forgive. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Write that down, because forgiveness is all 9th step. You see what I'm saying? So resentments, but this is the crazy thing. The resentments I write down on my 8th step, I need to go to for forgiveness. So, whoa, I hate these people. I'm never gonna talk to these people again. How am I supposed to ask for forgiveness? You see what I'm saying? You don't gotta worry about that now. You can't even conceive it. You can't even understand, but by the time you get there, it'll make sense. You see what I'm saying? You don't gotta worry about that right now. Just know that that's important. If I can't forgive myself, first off, how can I forgive anyone else? Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for me, in the way it works for me, it's like an all-purpose tool. Like, it's self-image, self-love. If you have that, it's much easier to let the resentments kind of dissipate. You know what I mean? Because it's like you were saying, you know, you were like you were saying it's looking at what's happened to you, your past, in a negative way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you're like, you've got to fix that. You've got to find a way to change that perspective, you know? But for me, the only way that I could change that perspective was to begin to love myself in a healthy way. And what that's like an all-purpose tool that says, look, fucking yeah, I got cancer in 2015. I had a fucking engagement break off. I fucked this up, did that. But at the end of the way, if I love myself today, it was all worth it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe the fact that I did go through a medical situation made me a little bit more empathetic to people who are going through that. You know what I mean? That was really the only way to look at cancer and say that's not all negative. You know what I mean?
And it's like,
But if I didn't love myself today, which I didn't in active addiction 3 months ago, fucking the cancer was like, fuck that. Fuck the cancer. Give me some drugs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. And it's like, how do, you know, let me ask you this question. Is there a fast track way to learning this lesson? You know what I mean? Like, is there a pill that I can take to give me this?
No, it sucks. It sucks because you have to go through some shit to be like a person that can love people.
You ever get back at someone? Anybody ever get back? Anybody ever get back?
Look at her.
I know she did. Right? Dude, it's like, I had a client in detox.
On advice of legal counsel, I'd tell you to go easy here, you know?
Yeah. I had a client in detox who was complaining about someone who had robbed him for like $300 or something like that. Some people may have been there. I don't know if anybody in here was in that group, and he could not move on, like he could not stop obsessing about planning a way to rob this person. And I'm like,
Just leave a shit in his car or something.
I'm like, bro, you just gotta let that go.
He was
Like,
well,
yeah.
I gotta do something about it.
dude, and he could not, and the whole time we're here, he has his own roadblock in his brain preventing him from even accepting the content, moving on in the discussion.
And he knew it too. He even said he
That's
knew
the
it was
tragedy
holding
right
him
there.
back, but he was still gonna do it.
And he could not now that's the
Powerlessness.
That's the thank you. Dude, thank you. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Sorry, Jim.
No, you're good. You're good. I want you to do that though. I want you to make those connections before I even make them. That's the powerlessness. That's the going back to steps 1, 2, and 3. You're taking resentments and saying, wow, I'm powerless over this resentment. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop having this emotional response. When I think about the motherfucker who robbed me, I just get angry. And I can't think of anything else and focus, and I'm not even receiving the message. And I'm the one who, and he couldn't move on past that. See, now second step comes in where, okay, there's got to be a way to get over this. Now, cancer. Some people say, dude, I know a lot of people who have cancer who, they have a great story. They have a heroic story, and they share it, and they're open about it, and that could be my hope, you know? Maybe some people can't see hope in some of their situations, but it is there. For me, it's always about finding someone who has gone out of that situation.
Yeah, it's like those people, like, you know, they go on Oprah and shit, and they talk
Dude.
about their story, and they give, like, all these people hope, you know? But ain't somebody who's fucking doing crystal and drinking isn't going on Oprah with hope, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you gotta get out of that shit, and then you can flip the script, you know?
Now, then it's about, okay, I need to make the decision to go that way with my resentments or to go this way with my resentments. I can either hang on to them or I can start literally watering the new perspective that I have developed. Because a new perspective is going to occur. You know what I mean? Like, that is going to happen. People are going to be like, whoa, maybe I can do this, or maybe I have this part. And it's about letting that seed, like, flourish into a plant and continuing to go through that to understand it, not letting it die out. One and then two.
Okay. I'm about to
Get
share,
dirty. Get
share
dirty.
how actually mean I am. There was somebody that really did me bad. And then something bad happened to her that I didn't have anything to do with it. It was actually, I mean, I wouldn't have wished it on her, but it happened to her, and I didn't care.
Yes. Were you drinking at that time? Were you
Yeah.
using it? Yeah. I agree. And
We
and
talked about this before.
I'll tell you
Yeah,
what.
but I didn't care.
I know.
That is a result of your powerlessness over the strength of this resentment. I swear onto you. I just can't. I've been there. I had that same thing happen.
I might have even been happy.
Hey,
Yeah, now we're getting somewhere.
there you go. That's
Doing some
I'm
work.
telling you. That's okay. That is as a result of the fact that you're like, that might not be okay. You know what I mean? That might not be right is exactly where you should be. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's where I want us to talk about this. I've been there. I had a friend of mine, the kid, he went into my house, stole an ounce of weed from me while I was at school. So we went to my house on break. No phone. Went on my break. We were on lunch break or whatever. Went to my house, blazed up. Then I went home, went back to school. When I came home, it was gone. I'm like, what the? Dude, he stole it, you know? Resented it forever. And
Never admitted it.
no, I admitted it.
No, did he admit it?
No, they never admitted it,
Whatever.
right? One instance, I did get some weed back from him. There was one instance where I stole weed back from him.
You felt
But that
a little good
feeling,
about that.
yeah,
right?
felt a little good about it. Got a little get back.
Sick.
Still never let it go. He ended up passing away.
Mm.
And my friends would talk to me about it. And I had
You were like, "Phew."
flat affect, bro. No emotional response. Just like, yeah. You know?
You're
That's-
better than me though.
That's what happens, you know?
I have
And that,
motherfuckers steal my weed and
dude, yeah. But that is, I mean, I have no empathy in that moment, you know? And I should. My friends were like, dude, that's your friend. Like, you guys were boys. You guys hung out all the time. And I just was,
He
and
didn't like
that's-
go and piss on his grave or anything, so.
No, I didn't do nothing like that. But that's to me. Okay, now why do I say it's okay, and why are we powerless over these emotional responses to these situations? Because our emotions. I'm sorry. Did you have a question? You did have a question.
It was more of a comment.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just gonna say something that's helped me, and I've mentioned this before, is stopping, like, realizing a lot of what I'm feeling, those resentments, are selfish, and that I'm feeling sorry for myself.
Mm.
and it's like, woe is me, this happened to me, this person did this to me, and instead of that, reframing it into a more selfless position of what can be learned from this that can benefit others. So that's something that took me a while, and I was almost like, I deserve to feel sorry for myself. But also, then you're just stuck in this cycle. So
I just think the drugs and the alcohol have so much to do with it. It's like when, you know, it's like your brain is fucked when you're on that shit. And you literally, like, really believe your own bullshit. And that's why I'm sitting here today, 92 days or whatever, and fucking, I know that sorry bullshit is not good, toxic, fuck all that noise.
Yes.
So I'm like kind of confused about well, that's further on obviously, but so isn't it in step 4 where you're talking about the resentments and stuff too, but like what is the difference between step 4 and like the resentments in step like 8?
Well, 8 is amends.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 8, you're creating a list of amends.
Okay.
So now why, let me explain why resentment is important when it comes to amends making, a little insight into it, alright? Now, this is all explained in the step working guide and stuff like that. If you're ever interested, when we get to amends in 8th step, we're gonna talk about it. But for instance, say I resent my mom, right? If I don't have a healthy I thought my mom was the cause of my addiction. If I don't have a healthy understanding that that's not true, when I go to make amends, my amends may be jaded by the belief that you're the fucking reason I have to do this.
So you gotta work through the resentment first.
So I may go to make an amends looking for like a reciprocal amends.
Right.
You know? And
now you're mixing things together that shouldn't be mixed.
Exactly. Or I may begin amending things that don't even need to be amended, you know? And that could be a problem in the relationship too.
Amending things that don't need to be amended because you haven't worked through a resentment.
Because it will cause harm or
Right.
whatever. So I may intentionally like cause harm against someone during my
As a
amends.
payback for a resentment.
Dude, as a get back.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why really, one, understanding these, and 2, letting them go is so important. Because you don't want any piece of that bitterness, that anger to get in the way of the last thing you have to do to be equal with society. Yo, like, imagine getting all the way to that point and having your own anger get in the way of like these relationships being exactly where they need to be.
So is that when they say, you make amends except for where to do so would harm?
That's correct. Yep. Now,
So that's not an excuse not to do it though.
there is no, the question is now, again, this is future stuff. The question is not whether or not I'm making the amends, the question is how I'm making the amends. Some of these resentments, so you may have a person who is abused by a family member, for instance, right? They resent them. Totally understand you resent them, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Not gonna go into it, right? Later in active addiction, you see them justify and rationalize stealing them or harming them as a result of their addiction. Because that justification on the foundation of they abused me. You see what I'm saying? So now you have harm caused from the addiction justified as a result of harm caused. And that is not a justification for that. Now that person still has to get an amends. Do I go give that person an amends? Or is maybe the amends best done by just staying sober, keeping this fucking person out of my life forever? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now that is a great way of making an amends. You see what I'm saying? But again, that's future stuff. Now, I did want to get back on understanding your powerlessness over resentment. So we're kind of working backwards a little bit. You got to keep in mind that a resentment is emotion. Okay? Now let's go back to our definition of emotion, and this is why your response to that resentment makes sense. Because an emotion is a natural, instinctive state of mind deriving from circumstances, moods, and relationships with people, objects, and concepts. It's a lot, so let me write it down. A natural, we talked about this last week, instinctive emotion, a natural instinctive state of mind deriving from one's, and this is going to be a constant theme throughout class next couple weeks talking about this, deriving from circumstances, moods, relationships. With the relationships are with people, objects, and concepts. So, the resentment you feel is natural. That is the natural emotion that would, for you as an individual, that would derive from that. You see what I'm saying? If you were to be in that situation time and time again, you would always develop that emotional response. Okay? Naturally. Like when you look at the resentments naturally, like even other people would agree with you. Yeah, bro, you should hate them. You know what I mean? That you should naturally feel that way. It's a state of mind. It's a state of mind that is anger or annoyance, and this state of mind is provoked by, what are you looking at?
I cannot read your handwriting.
Which one do you want to read?
Number 2.
Mood.
Mood.
Yep.
It's all being recorded. You can get a copy of it.
Yep. And again, you can
That's
write
way
it.
too much work.
Write it down too. Natural instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with people, objects, and concepts. Now, we'll first off talk about how the development of the resentment in itself is natural, instinctive state of mind. You see what I'm saying? So when you go through the unfair treatment, your perception of it would naturally create, right, that. Now that's your perception. Now,
Because of your fucked up system.
yeah, exactly. Because of how all of our decision making and all the times we did whatever, it would make sense that that person would feel that way.
Yeah, if you had you're fucked. You got no choice. Your system was fucked, so then the resentment is natural. It's not like you chose to have the resentment. You know?
Right, exactly. You did not choose to have
We
this-
don't choose any of these things.
None of these things.
It's because our system was flawed to begin with. Our
Now-
system of beliefs.
Now, some of them may be flawed, some of them may be true.
Yeah, it's not
But
100%.
It's up to us to figure out what's not true, what is true, what I
Oh,
can't
sure.
control, what I can control. Now, these resentments can be over circumstances, so certain circumstances that happen, moods. So, circumstances make sense. You can obviously think of circumstances, right, where people could cop a resentment. Moods, right? I used to resent myself for feeling depressed. You didn't feel depressed. Nope. Here I'm denying my own emotion, and I'm saying that I am not a person who feels depressed. I'm not someone who feels a natural instinctive state of mind, given my shitty life that I'm living. You know what I mean? I should be homeless, addicted to drugs, ruining every relationship in my life, and be happy. Like, that's my perception. You see what I'm saying? And that perception, going back to steps 1, 2, 3, is sitting on a foundation of horrible decision making, where the motive around every single one of those decisions is to get, use, and find ways and means to get more. So, circumstances, moods, and relationships. I may resent people. I can resent objects, right? Like just the sight of an object, you may be bitter towards someone. Just like seeing, yo, bro, you really fucking bring alcohol around me? You see something like that, you know what I'm saying? Or ideas. just the idea that that's the right way you were treated could piss someone off, right?
You gonna do the heat? The heater?
So now,
It is
You need to
stuffy.
turn it down.
Yeah, if you can.
yeah, just a couple notches. Now, so now we understand where this emotion comes from, right? It comes from circumstances where it develops, right? Again, some of these could be like daily patterns that create this. It could also be one major life event. You know what I mean? How it gets developed is not necessarily as important as like understanding how its development has stunted our progress in life, right? Or growth, or whatever you want to call it. So now, my question is, what are some natural circumstances, what are some normal times where you may feel this resentment?
Passed over for a promotion?
Boom. Wait, you said somebody else gets a promotion?
Yeah, like you've been busting your ass, this guy's been fucking riding your, and then he's just got an in with the boss or something and he lands it.
Naturally. I would be fucking pissed too. You see what I'm saying? Right? Now, someone who, anybody else got another instance where maybe a resentment might be,
We don't feel heard.
don't feel heard? Okay. So looked over, not feeling heard.
Someone constantly accuses you of using even though you aren't.
Accused of using. I have many people talk about parents they resent in this group, and I'll often ask them like, when does your resentment come on, right? And you can even do this with your resentment for yourself, right? What might be happening in your environment, a circumstance, what might a mood that you're in, or a relationship that you're in, what might be happening around you that would prompt you to be like, I'm fucking so pissed off with myself, I'm so like annoyed with myself.
It's just the overall reaction to the situation being something I probably caused. So then I just turn it inward. You know?
So like you're going to, so you having like actual interaction with harm done from your addiction causes this?
Yes.
What might be an example of that? Or a recent time where you have felt this and what was happening?
Well, in general, in my work, for example, we are so understaffed that it's like almost impossible to do the job well. Like, and I don't feel like I'm doing a good job as a nurse because of our staffing ratios. And we've hollered out and we've hollered out and we've hollered out, even my coworkers. But then that really turns into resentment toward myself because I need to get out of that situation. And guilt for not having been the best nurse I could be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically, I just turn it on to myself. You know, even though it's an outward situation, that even other coworkers, we're all in the same boat. But I then turn it inward, into me being unable to act, me being unable to say, I can't do this job anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So that's what it turns into for me. That's just an example
Okay.
of,
So it's like, rather
Thank
than,
you for sharing.
the natural resentment would be towards the hospital or whatever corporation for their fucked up staffing policy, but because you're such a nice lady, you literally say, I don't wanna harbor resentment externally, it's just easier to resent myself
right.
and persecute myself over it.
And I'm unable to take action.
Well, even if you were fucking an organizer and organized the whole hospital, you're battling against a force that's probably bigger than.
Oh, way greater.
Exactly. So I don't know that there's necessarily much action. That could be just wasted energy
Right.
at that point.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
besides literally leaving that hospital, finding one that was properly staffed. I don't know what other action you could really take.
Right.
You know.
Mm.
Right.
Anybody else have an example of a resentment they're feeling and an example of how?
I got one.
Okay.
So I recently, September 28th, I got a DUI, and I also kind of crashed my car a little bit, just ran up a curb. So my car, while I was at Mount Sinai, while I was at my first month here, my car was getting fixed. And one of the things that needed to be fixed was my front wheel, the rim. And I got my car back after a couple, it was a couple months. It was being held somewhere, and then I got it. And I went to go wash it, and I was washing it, and I noticed that the rim that was on the front wasn't the original rim. They charged me for a wheel repair, but they took my rim and put on a replica. And they didn't say anything about it. They just thought I wouldn't notice, which is fucking crazy because they kind of know me. And I was like washing it, and I like looking around. I'm like, okay, this is a BMW wheel. This is a BMW wheel. This one's not. It's just a replica,
Because they can make more money off that BMW.
Whatever, it's honestly not that. It's not like a big. It's $300 probably for a used rim like that. But anyways, they go. So I called the dude, and I'm like, it's the weirdest thing, bro. Like, I got my car back, and one of my wheels is mismatched. It's a replica, and I swear I had 4 authentic ones when I brought it to you. And I could just tell right away. And he's like, oh, we've been working with this company for 10 years. They would never do anything like that. Super aggressive. Like, I'm just like super calm, recovered. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he's just like way overboard, aggressively, like saying that you're totally wrong. That could never be. So like, in that second, I started to like for me, if I harbor the resentment, if I let it go for more than like 8 seconds, it could live inside me for years. You know what I mean? But right then, I just worked through it and just kind of let it go. You know what I mean? Which is kind of like what they teach us to do within the program, because it's really not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? They probably couldn't fix my wheel. It was probably cracked. They probably had one knocking around the garage, a replica one, and they just stuck it on there. And maybe that company told the shop, and he forgot to you know what I mean? Or maybe he wasn't there that day. 100 million different things could happen, But it's just funny because I told somebody who's sick about this, and he's like, dude, let's go down there, get some balaclavas, fuck their shit up, Mm-hmm. I'm like, nah, bro,
Yeah. And it's like, that question has to come up of, dude, and this is a question you gotta ask, is pursuing this worth it?
It's literally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, is it worth it? Is it worth the stretch? Is the payoff worth the stretch?
Legit, you know what I mean? And it doesn't even need to be is pursuing it. Like maybe it's like is carrying this,
And then even then there's that second level. Okay, I'm not gonna really go there and fuck shit up or deny the credit card charge. I'm gonna go leave some negative feedback on Google reviews about them, some shit like that. I didn't even want, because I was like, that's not even where I want to go with this,
Mm-hmm.
It's fine.
So let's begin a small list of now. Let me ask you this question: now, I think resentment is healthy. Having a resentment is healthy. You don't want to continue to be treated unfairly. If you identify unfair treatment, that's a healthy feeling that is telling you don't go back there. You know what I mean? Right. We're the ones who have to determine.
They won't get my business anymore. That's really living my best life.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
We're the ones who have to determine whether or not, having this is healthy or it's not healthy. Should I resent this person? Is this a normal feeling? And then actually getting rid of it, having to let go of that feeling. Now, so feeling a healthy amount of resentment, right? Which means when you are treated unfairly in an appropriate manner, that is the right emotional response. What about someone who feels resentment too much? So someone who's always resentful, they're always, bitter, indignation because they've been treated unfairly. What type of person might they become?
Someone like Kieran.
No way, dude.
Someone like that? What anybody else? What mental and moral quality does a person who has a lot of resentments have?
Anger.
Asshole.
Miserable. You're just miserable.
Angry, miserable asshole.
Yeah.
You see, do you know anyone who just is, man, it's their fault, fuck them, they're wrong, this, that.
A lot of older people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they just start, I don't know, like they don't want to do the work anymore.
Well, they've been treated unfairly
the longer
their
you live,
whole
the more,
life.
Right, the longer you live, the more chances you have to fucking shit.
The more examples, the more reasons that I've been treated unfair. You don't understand.
Yeah,
The
but
self-pity.
if you shift that perspective, the longer you live, the more beauty you can see in the world too. If
So
you live
now,
that way.
what about someone who feels no
They
resentment?
get walked all the fuck over.
They get walked on. They're passive to the point that they can't protect themselves sometimes, you know? They just like let these things happen. So you can see.
Fuck no, everybody can dive on that.
But think about the mental or moral quality. The mental quality of someone like that, the moral quality, like it's okay. You know, it's okay, don't worry about it, you know?
Yeah, it's
no
like-
You're
problem.
more defeated too.
Yeah, you're just fucking tired of it, but you're never gonna say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a form of
That's
learned helplessness.
Sarah Grace, that's
Right.
you in the moment.
No, there's one person in this whole entire world who could like die today and I'm not gonna fuck.
But that's out of.
So she's got a resentment. She always got one for her
She's
list.
got resentment out of the situation.
Does she?
So you can see that there is sort of a spectrum with this emotion.
Yeah.
Like it's natural, it's instinctive, you need to feel it. But feeling it too much, you can have problems. Feeling it too little, you can have problems. There are certain circumstances, there are certain relationships, there are certain moods that make you feel it more than other things, less than other things. And it's about identifying whether I should feel this way, should not feel that way, if it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense. And what you're going to see is if you feel like someone who's been called angry all the time, this might make sense. You see what I'm saying? If you're someone who's, bro, you got to stick up for yourself, you got to stop being so passive, this might make sense. You see what I'm saying? And we may see places in our lives that we've cheated ourselves because I have not made sense of this emotion, but instead responded to it. So instead of feeling the emotion, like making an appropriate decision with it, I respond to it, you know? And and what you're actually seeing is how somebody responds to unfair treatment. Do they mope? Do they complain? Do they whine? Do they go around and tell everybody else? You know what I mean? It's like,
Rage.
huh?
With rage. Just
So-
like a pure hatred.
Do they sit there with a knife and drive over to their house to kill them? You know what I mean? Do they,
Yeah.
or do they just, you know, there's all these different responses. And
It is
we're-
what it is.
Yeah, and what you're gonna see is when you have these responses compiled over years, you may see similarities in them. You may see some decisions that we make that would make sense of why people think I'm an angry guy, why people think I'm this way, or treat me this way, or yada yada yada. So we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna jump right into the book. I'm gonna read like a paragraph, have a little talk about it, and then we're gonna share our resentment. So think about who you resent or what you resent and why you resent them. And when we come back, I am excited to hear stories, and I want to hear why you resent them, and I want to validate you and tell you how much you should resent them and all that stuff. So
Yeah, part of indignation, I'll accept. It's also righteous anger.
yeah.
You can, I mean, you can have that too, which is righteous. You have a right to
Like
have it.
so you have the right to be angry, and some people abuse that right.
Yeah.
So-
No, of course, of course.
So all right, take a break and come on back.
I had radical acceptance about it, all those things. I know I can't change them and what have you.
Yep. So when I first did my fourth step, and this is why having a sponsor and like a sober network is really important. When I first did my fourth step, I got to my resentments and said, I don't have any. You know what I mean? I accepted them. I don't worry about this or that. And I had called friends and my sponsor and stuff like that. And all of them just basically said something along the lines of, one of my friends said this. He said, Jimmy, have you ever, do you have an ex-girlfriend? I said, yes. He goes, how did that relationship go? And I was like, she was the worst. We ended up like going back and forth, and you know, we just didn't end up working out. We tried it in college, this and that, never worked, and fuck that bitch. You know what I mean? And he was like, has that relationship impacted other relationships in your life? And
No, what do you mean?
and immediately when he said that, I was like, just the idea of my idea of women had changed as a result of that relationship. You see what I'm saying? I remember thinking like, oh, this is just how chicks are. You know what I mean? As a result of that relationship. So all the relationships afterwards were tainted as a result of that one relationship. So I had to go back to that one relationship and understand and let go of like the things that angered me, that I didn't make sense of. You see what I'm saying? And then from there, I also had resentments towards myself. Like when I would think of my past and the things that I had done, I had this bitter indignation towards myself. And that was what kind of really began the understanding of like all my other resentments. So if you find yourself saying like, I don't have any, I would always encourage you to put yourself on there. Or number two, understand the ones that you have let go and try to build a better understanding of those ones.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I'm saying? So, because like I said, that relationship, I let that go. I didn't have any like ill feelings towards her, but going back to it, to understand it, to evaluate it, made sense to me. You know what I'm saying? So, if you
open up doors to, you know, how it impacted, how much it impacted.
yeah.
It's in your life.
Right. Now, even if you let them go, just thinking about that and doing that type of run through with them is extremely helpful. Any other questions, kind of, before we get started in trying to work through these?
I kind of have like a statement kind of one.
Go ahead.
It's like, for me, like, because I'm kind of going through the same thing right now with my 4-step, like with my sponsor, where I feel like I broke down everything, but it's kind of like starting to become like a domino effect. Like I'll think of like one resentment, and then after I really start thinking about that one resentment, like it leads me to other resentments that have kind of like branched off from it. And now it's just like, I don't know how many resentments I really have. Like, I'm starting to get to the process where I'm like, damn, like I really don't know how many resentments I have. Like how long is this list going to be? And it's like my sponsor is like really just telling me to take my time with it for the most part, because like it's not something that you have to rush through or like feel like you finish like almost immediately. Like it's more like something that you really break down everything so you know that you're not leaving something out. You know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like yesterday I thought that I went through everything, and just recently like I was thinking about it in class today, and I was like, I mean, I could really start branching off from some of those things that I've already written down, because it's like just broken into different aspects of my life that I never really thought of.
And then it brings up the idea of like, okay, say, let's use that X example, right? I have this new perception on the world, this new concept of relationships as a result of that relationship. And now I'm behaving with that scar in this next relationship. Maybe some of my decisions that I made were built on a poor foundation from that last relationship. You see what I'm saying? So now this relationship's messed up as a result of that. And then this next relationship gets messed up as a result of these two problems. You see what I'm saying? So now, that's why it's so difficult, because when you go back, like when I go back to that relationship in college, I see such a giving person, such a loving, open, honest, like anything we can, you know what I mean? And then somewhere along the way, I became this money over bitches, fuck this, fuck that type of shit. You know what I mean? And like, I wasn't like that at one point. And where along the way did that change? Or was I like born with that? You see what I mean? I could have been brought up in an environment where I believe that that is correct, So now my resentments are built upon a foundation. Like, dude, I was watching Wife Swap with Coolio the other day, dude. And Coolio is like, man, fuck this shit, man. Fuck these bitches. These ain't my fucking kids. I don't gotta take care of them. And it's like, yo, Coolio, where'd you learn this?
Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Coolio.
You know what I mean? It's like, how did you learn this? Who taught you this? And and when he meets up with Mark McGrath, because Mark McGrath's wife switched with Coolio's wife, literally Mark McGrath sits down and goes, like, Coolio greets, Mark McGrath is like, hey, honey, picks her up, lifts her like this, and Coolio walks up and is like, hey, babe, and like gives her like a, and it's like, yo, and Mark McGrath goes, he's really from Compton. And it's like, dude, you see a man who doesn't even understand that the way he's treating his wife is not right. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, for me to tell Coolio that, he wouldn't understand that. And he's got to go through a bunch of work to understand that. So, and he may get resentful at me for confronting him about something like that. You see what I'm saying? So that is a long line of misperceptions on the world. You see what I'm saying? And what going through an entire understanding of this feeling in my past can give me a great understanding of who I am today, my mental and moral quality as an individual. You see what I'm saying? In different circumstances of life.
And at a minimum, you might not repeat the same thing over and over because I haven't worked through shit before. I would fucking find myself in the same situation 5 years down the line, and that's like the weirdest feeling because you're like, what is the universe trying to tell me, bro? You're fucking not doing anything, and you're literally, your behaviors are repetitive.
Yeah. Now, if people can't understand how they get in this position with their obsession over drugs and alcohol, they can't understand how they get in this situation over having been treated unfairly. Boom. You see what I'm saying? That's why steps 1, 2, and 3 are so important. If I'm not making healthy decision making around drugs and alcohol, I may not be making healthy decisions around, my other emotions that I'm feeling, like resentment, anger, so on and so forth. We have resentments when we re-feel old feelings. There's 3 times we have resentments, and these are the 3 instances that they say we have resentments. 1, when we re-feel old feelings. 2, when we are unable to let go. I can't let something go. Or 3, we cannot forgive and forget something that has upset us. 1, so this is when we feel resentment. So these are the times in which you're going to feel resentments. 1, let me see if I can screencast this shit, dude. With my new laptop. Can I do that? Let me pull this up, actually. Re-feel old feelings when we cannot forgive and forget something that has upset us, and when we are unable to let go. There it is. So see how easy that is, guys? If you do want to, most of like what we're talking about, if you want to print it out, you go to Google, type in NA Step Working Guide PDF, and this is what you get. This is what I read out of. So everything I talk about in like spectrum and identifying, that's like my shit, but the questions and everything like that, like you clearly know when I'm reading out of the book. I try to make it very clear that I'm reading out of the book. But just understand that if you do want this, it's available for free. It's like 80 pages. You got to print it out, or you can buy it on Amazon or whatever the case may be. So let's get down to 4th step.
This is the one that's got even the writing works that it wants you to do, right? It tells like little, or is that a different? Because I have like the NA book, the NA. I thought it was this, but
So this is the step working guide, and it goes with It Works How and Why.
Right.
So It Works How and Why is a book explaining how this works and why this works. So when you hear the book It Works How and Why, the word it is meant to mean this step working guide.
But I'm saying, there's literally like questions that says, do some writing on this.
Yeah.
Is it in this?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you're like, how does this work? Why is the fourth step? Why are steps 1, 2, and 3 important? You know what I mean? That book identifies that for you. I talk about it in here, but everything I talk about in here is my own interpretation through my experience working these steps and like doing these steps with other people. So that's my experience. All right. I'm going the wrong fucking way.
So what was the third reason? Was
Cannot
resentment
forgive or
occur?
forget, or I put cannot or will not forgive or forget.
Here it is, right here. We feel resentments when, you see it right there? When we re-feel old feelings, when we are unable to let go, when we cannot forgive and forget something that has upset us. We list our resentments for a number of reasons. So then, these are the reasons that we work through. Like, why do this? Why go back to these things? Why understand this? What is the purpose of this? 1, it'll help us let go of old anger that is affecting our lives today. Secondly, exploring our resentments will help us identify the ways in which we set ourselves up to be disappointed in others. Okay? And finally, making a list of our resentments will help reveal patterns that kept us trapped in a cycle of anger, self-pity, or both. So those are the times we feel resentments and the reasons why we go over our resentments. I'll leave that up there so you can feel free to write it down. I don't want you to go too deep into these questions, so I'm going to kind of hide them. But all right, so now let's begin. Who or what do you resent and why? So now this is where I'm like, who do you resent? And I want to hear the story of like why you resent them. Who or what? So is it a person or is it a place, an institution? Who or what do you resent and why?
Are we just doing one?
You can do as many as you want, but I want to hear. I want someone to share.
I'll share.
Yeah.
Well, I have a childhood friend. I met this guy when I was probably about 17 or 18. I was working for him, and he introduced me to my DLC, and made it easy for me to use because he had it, and so I resent him for getting me hooked on my DLC and just allowing me to a safe place to do it, and having me out doing I would go make runs and stuff, and so just
A safe place to do unsafe shit.
yeah.
What was his name?
Brian.
Anybody else? Who do you resent and why?
I've got a couple.
Okay.
I'll be brief. First and foremost, I have myself. Basically just getting myself into the mess that I got myself into, getting behind in school, kind of just like handicapping me starting my career and all that good stuff. So next I have my brother. He had a really bad case of like older brother syndrome. Always tried to boss me around, make me do shit, and pretty much just treated me like shit. I have, this one's a sort of growing resentment, is my house manager at my sober living place. He's an asshole, and basically like he's on multiple occasions has accused me of using with no evidence of it. And so basically he's just on my ass 24/7, just whenever I'm just trying to do what I need to do. And then
Our house manager. Easy now.
and then for a little bit I had a resentment against God. Because since my dad passed whenever I was so young, I was like, why would this happen? If this God is all loving, why would he take my dad away from me whenever I needed him the most?
So, kind of like you're mad because you blame God for your dad passed away? Or,
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, the death of your father?
And there were multiple deaths in like a short, like 1 or 2 year time frame, because my uncle died, which was his brother. He died like a year or 2 later.
Thank you for sharing. Good list. I hope you don't mind I wrote all those down.
That is fine with me.
Anybody else got one? Just one. Yeah.
I had a stepdad for like a million years who, when him and my mom were getting divorced, he made false accusations against her, and I had to go in front of CPS and tell them that everything that he said she did was a lie because it was. So he tried to get me taken away from my mother. Yeah.
Wow.
Where is he?
Hell, he literally, I hope he dies today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Hell hath no fury.
I also put down my dad, for abandoning me, and just pretty much there's a whole bunch that goes with that for abandonment.
Yep. Anybody else? Thank you for sharing.
I'll piggyback off of Sarah Grace. I don't like to call this person my stepfather because this is the man that married my mother, not my stepfather. So we are 13 years apart, and my mother and him are 15 years apart. This is a miserable asshole. Everything always happens to him. So I lived with my father and stepmother. So every summer vacation I came, every holiday, he made him miserable because he's a miserable person and very angry and huge temper. Then I'll go to something specific. So I was 21. My mother had been stationed in Korea, South Korea. She came back. We went to see my grandparents in Vegas. Then we drove down to San Diego. God, what a fucking nightmare of a vacation that was. Like, literally, I left the dinner table when we were having dinner because we were arguing about politics or something. You know, you're not supposed to have it. And I kept saying, can we stop? I was trying to be mature. Can we, quit? And he would not stop barking. And I was like, excuse me, to my mother and my sister. And I went straight to, because I was 21, I went straight to the fucking bar and started fucking, I got drunk as fuck. But then later that summer, they moved, or he moved ahead to a base. She was Army. And I came down. I don't know why. I hated him. I don't know why I came down. But he propositioned me for sex. Dead fucking serious. So I've also got some resentment towards my mom because I told my mom later. And she made excuses for him. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff too, but
Is your mom on there too? Do you resent your mom a little bit?
I've got yes, but that's a really longer list.
Long history.
Yes, long history. No, it's okay. But yes, so like to me, this is a resentment that is going to take a lot for me to get to the point of acceptance and forgiveness. And I don't think I will ever apologize to this man. I mean, I'm sure I was a bratty teenager, and I'm sure I did shit. I know I did shit. But to me, the power, so much of it was out of my control that I don't think letting go is more important, because I know it's for me, but I will not be making amends to this man. Period.
And let me say this.
Because it would harm myself.
Right.
Really.
Absolutely. And
yeah,
hey,
because you have nothing to be to apologize for.
yeah, you don't have to worry about that. I was just keep in mind, everyone, when I was sharing that amends stuff, that was not in an effort for you to begin interpreting that into this step.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was merely just like,
There is a correlation,
There-
but that's down the line.
yes,
Yes.
thank you. You know what I mean? It's like, so I don't want.
That's just one that, on the top of my head, that came up because I'm like, I really fucking hate this person.
Right, but I say that because I do not want that idea of having to make an amends to this person to prevent you from getting what as much as you can from this. You see what I'm saying? Like, had you not known that, perhaps you may have interpreted this differently. So that's why I'm saying, like, I'm trying to have you do this without the idea of knowing that this is going to come up in the 8th step and not understanding the correlation between it. You know what I mean? So, just want to say that real quick.
So sort of try to find out something that can help us without actually going so far, in my opinion, because what they just described is like, it's unforgivable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that, I've never understood people like, you know, somebody murdered their kid. I forgive them. I don't understand that shit.
Dude, alright, you don't understand it, but that doesn't mean it's not possible, and that doesn't mean that the choice of forgiving someone has less value than not forgiving them.
If they've tried everything else and it's still eating them from the inside, and that's the last thing to try, maybe that's just how it ends up.
Have you ever seen someone do that? You ever watch that show Court Cam?
Oh yeah.
Bro,
Mhm.
so on Court Cam, there's this, I think I may mistake the story, but this happens all the time. This isn't like an uncommon story. Children, their kids were killed in a drinking and driving accident. The woman in prison doesn't even remember anything from that night. She was so drunk. She isn't even capable of feeling the empathy because her brain blacked the whole situation out, dude, because she was so drunk. Think about that, right? Imagine waking up and everyone's like, you killed 4 fucking people, and you can't even emotionally register that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the father of like one of the kids who was killed takes the stand to give a whatever
Closing.
Victim impact statement.
victim impact statement, and he just forgives the person and is like, you made a bad decision that night, you know, it's not your fault, it's just a bad, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it, dude. And you look at that person, and people may look at that person and be like, why would you do that? You have every right in the world to be mad at them, to tell them to go fuck themselves, to this and that. But that that does not have as much value as the person forgiving. You know what I mean? And it's up again. What you believe is right and wrong to do in that situation is what you believe is right and wrong to do in that situation. This is a moral inventory based upon ourselves. This is your moral. This is what you think is right and wrong, right? And I'll tell you, like, I think that is the right response to forgive that person. Am I capable of doing it? Probably not. You know? Do I have the ability to do it? Do I think it's sane or insane? I think it's sane. I think it's I just can't do it, you know what I mean? And I pray that I am able to do that. Hopefully it never happens, but in the event that it does, I would hope to be brave and courageous enough to search fearlessly within myself, build an empathetic understanding and perspective for that person, and understand that that person is going to be in jail for the rest of their life, and they made a decision that cost them this, although that decision ended up causing me my family's life. That's a choice that's out of my power, and the best thing I can do is forgive this person and let it go.
See, the best thing I would do is to pray for God to give me peace within. That is as far as I could go.
Powerlessness. You don't have the power, but something like God does. You're going right back to first step, dude. To make the decision to do that literally requires a power greater than myself, like God. So in order for me to be able to be in a position for that, that's a requirement. And and the idea of doing that is literally insane. Like, And that is a natural, instinctive state of mind for you to have as a result of your life. If you were to look at that other person's life, it would make sense for them to do that. It would make sense. They'd be like, yes, this is, maybe they go to church, I don't know what they would do that would cause them to have that type of forgiveness. But when you look at that person, that is the natural, instinctive state of mind of that person, given whatever they had to do to be so brave and courageous.
Yeah,
'Cause
I think in instances like that, whenever the victim does forgive the person who did it, it does so much more for them than the person they are forgiving.
And sometimes it does a lot for the person they're forgiving too.
And they said, the guy says, I hope you use this story to help other people. Like, are you kidding me? And now imagine this. That is what you need people like that person in prison to have that type of understanding and spiritual awakening to help other people. If that guy doesn't forgive him, that person doesn't reach the inner peace within themselves, perhaps, that gives them the freedom to change their life to prevent this from happening to other people. It's like, oh, you're seeing the powerlessness of their own healthy decision benefiting the rest of the world. Like, holy cow. Now, again, we're like deep. We're talking about resentment over concepts, right?
Yeah.
Bitter indignation towards the idea that someone out there has the power to do that. That's fucking crazy. It's like, yo, that's a limit. That idea around something like that idea is limiting my own possibilities.
I have another question for you. So I resented my ex-husband horribly. He used to steal Brittany from me. I mean, truly steal her.
Mm-hmm.
He got child services was called on him numerous times. I could go into all the things he did. And what he did was put fear in me because I had to let Brittany go to his house. And I was afraid every time she went. And then, steal her from me, not bring her back. Say it was his weekend. And, just crap like that all the time. And then when she got older, I mean, I haven't forgiven him for all of that. I just don't care anymore because he can't hurt me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When she's older, she's got a mind of her own. She knows what he's done, and he can't hurt me anymore. And he also can't hurt her by doing the stupid shit he is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not forgiveness, though. It's just I'm in a different
You're letting
place.
it go. It's letting it go. You know what I mean?
Well, I didn't really let it go. It just happened.
It's not
Just evaporated.
You're not
Actually grew
refeeling.
up.
You're not refeeling that old feeling.
No.
Maybe it can come on, but it's not like it used to be.
No.
And you're working through it. You're overcoming it. You know what I mean?
Still have no use for him.
And
whatsoever.
the benefit that could come from that is, like we were describing, understanding maybe how that has impacted maybe your relationship with your kids, your relationship with other people, your perspective on the world, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sharing about how my first serious girlfriend in college, fucked up my perspective on relationships and women. You see what I'm saying? It's like, so who knows what that type of experience could do to my emotions, my understanding of the world, my understanding of myself, and my own possibilities. Now, this whole inventory is not about the other person. It's about ourselves. It's about our moral inventory. Is it right for me to continue to hang on to this? Is it right for me to continue to re-feel these feelings? Or is this person not in my life? Should I let this go? Is this like a feeling that I should not really feel, Now, feelings, emotions, they're natural, but is this feeling
Detrimental.
Thank you. Yeah. Not even detrimental, but is it imagined, like an imagined feeling almost? Okay.
I mean,
Yes.
I guess we heard a phrase, lower power. I guess some of these are lower powers on us.
It'll remove you from your
Right.
purpose.
Yes.
Yes. as I'm describing, the man, bitter and resentful over someone stealing $300 from him, is spending all his time worried about getting that $300 back when you could be finding a job, buddy. You know what I mean? You could be doing this, you know? A lot of people did that things like that. So, and again, these are really complex. There could be a lot of them, and understanding them requires feeling the feeling and behaving a different way. Okay, so like if you want to learn to feel resentment and respond differently, prepare to be resentful. Prepare to feel like you were treated unfairly and behave a different way. You see what I'm saying? And that's where the new change begins to happen. Like when you do feel resentment and behave a different way, you change your, like the way your brain works, and your character changes, and your morals change. And you literally become a different person based upon what you're doing and how your brain responds to it, and your actual morals and decisions will speak for themselves. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, further on in recovery, maybe in the past, someone brings up your ex-husband and you immediately have a face change, personality change, bitter, angry, short, and people know that, and they don't even bring it up. They didn't talk to you about it. Why would I talk about it? All she's going to do is get angry. That's what we're going to talk about the rest of the time. I don't even fucking bring it up. That's how we get into this. We have our own feed loop that we listen to. And what happens is, until you start responding differently to that stimulus, people aren't going to think you changed. You see what I'm saying? So until you're hanging out with someone and they bring it up forgetfully, and you respond like, you know, it was a tough time in my life, but I'm really grateful for it because it made me who I am today. What, dude?
That's no shit. That's no bullshit.
Well, this
I
is
know,
new.
I'm just thinking about the faces on my family. And
No,
that's what you need to get.
What?
Because the thing is, if you don't start changing the way that you respond to it, the people around you stay sick.
If that guy doesn't forgive the person who killed their child, everybody in society stays sick.
All the people in his circle stay sick.
They think that's how you're supposed to act. That's how you're supposed to behave. And you have a whole society that kind of believes like get back is good.
Yeah, no pressure now. It's not like it's all on our shoulders, but like for our personal resentments, it kind of is.
Like I'm not here to change the other person. I'm not here to change the situation. I'm just here to change how that impacts my life.
Right.
And if that's going to continue to impact my life, right? And this is a heavy emotion, dude. This is heavy. You're talking about feelings that not only are heavy in nature, but have been around a while, perhaps, too. And it developed our whole character and this and that. So, okay. So we have the people we resent and why. What was your motivation, or what did you believe that led you to act as you did in these situations? So in the situations where your resentment comes on, right? What was your motivation, or what did you believe that led you to act as you did?
I don't deserve this.
What is it?
I don't deserve this.
I don't deserve this.
For me, it's like in the moment, like for example, like bringing back to like my house manager, like inside I'd be like this fucking asshole, but on the outside I'd be like just say whatever I can to get out of this situation.
So you're feeling like you want to tell this person like you're a fucking asshole.
So perhaps you're forsaking your
Yeah.
own beliefs for a more positive outcome in the time being.
Yeah.
In the short term.
Because like,
Kind of like,
In the short term.
yeah, because part of me wanted to say is like, hey, I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't accuse me of using without any evidence.
Not to mention I'm getting drug tested and breathalyzed at
Yeah,
fucking Southeast.
he literally fucking accused me while I was waiting to piss for a drug test.
Well, tell him to come over here and talk to us.
bro.
We got him.
Yeah, because like I was like sitting there waiting to pee, and he was like, "Is there something you want to tell me?" I'm like, "No, fuck no."
Did you ever do that in active addiction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to talk about something? You feeling okay? Yeah, I'm fine. You see what I'm saying? Like, I have this feeling inside, like I want to share something, but that's how I feel inside. But what am I actually doing? I'm not expressing that feeling. I'm going against that feeling with my expression. So what would you call that? You lie.
Deception.
Denial.
Evade.
Evasion. Yeah, that's a good one.
So, like, evasion is just as bad as, like, not telling anything. Like, it's like, I'm telling you the truth, but I just left out this little thing right here. You know what I mean?
Half truth.
Half truth, right. What was my motivation, or what did I believe that led me to act as I did in these situations? So, I'll share my resentment. I always share about my resentment towards Sally Mae. That's like the number one. I can also share about like my resentment towards my. Is there a specific one you want me to talk about? Parents, institution. 'Cause I've done them all.
Parents.
So I resented my parents because I believed that they were the reason that I was an addict. You know what I mean? Like, they're the fucking problem. And what was my motivation, or what did I believe that led me to act as I did? They used drugs. My mom was an alcoholic. My parents used to smoke pot with me. You know what I mean? They were irresponsible. I used to say things like, you know, if my mom fucking like let me borrow money, I wouldn't have had this happen. If I, like, all these reasons that when they wouldn't help me out, I got into these problems because they wouldn't help me out. You see what I mean? They fucking kicked me out, and that's the reason that I was on the fucking streets and this and that, right? So I believed, so like motivation or belief, right? So I believed that my parents were the reason for my addiction. Okay, like direct correlation. My motivation, I'll give you my Sally Mae, right? I used to evade payments for Sally Mae in active addiction. And my motivation to do that was to get high. Like, that's it. I also believed that if I didn't pay them, they would go away. That's a legit belief I had. Like, if I
Anyone with credit card debt that stops paying, whether you're an addict or not, you're like, it'll eventually go away.
it'll go away. Like
but
that.
school shit doesn't ever go away.
Dude, so those are some of the beliefs that I had that motivated me. Like, if I didn't authentically believe it would go away, maybe I would have fixed it. You know what I mean? But I believed it wasn't that big of a deal. It'll go away.
Yeah, like there'll be a president one day that'll forgive it, you know?
Yeah,
I
dude.
swear I believe that shit.
With student loans, once you get a student loan, you're fucked because it's like one of the most collectible forms of debt.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Like, they'll garnish your wages. You don't lose it once you go bankrupt. It's like, once you have it, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, like with other kinds of debt, like a medical situation will get you pennies on the dollar on it, you know? But not with student loans.
Yeah.
That shit stays exactly where it stayed.
Yeah, this is pissing me off. See,
I want to talk
this,
about this.
yo, you see what I'm saying? This
Stay
is
there,
resentment. Yo, this is what I'm talking about.
Stay sober.
Now keep in mind, dude, here we are talking about it. You guys are talking about it. And just hearing that is provoking my resentment. It's picking at it.
Oh,
It's like, you little like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's just how I can't fucking, if I could feel a different way, I would. You know what I mean? But that's my natural instinctive response when I'm in a room and people are talking about that type of stuff. I feel anxious, I feel nervous, and I'm like, I want to get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? So,
Do you want to know which debt I'm in?
yeah.
Is it hundreds of
I'll
thousands?
share mine.
I love
Oh
it.
yeah, you're for sure.
Makes me feel
When
good.
I'm done, I will be $325,000 in debt.
Oh,
Wow.
And it will take me.
with no house to
Yeah.
show for it.
It'll take me probably the majority of my career paid off.
No,
Yes.
it won't. If you're a vet, you'll be fine.
I'll be making
Six
good
figures.
money. Yeah, 6 figures, but
You'll be.
there's different like plans. We have a whole class on it at school.
You have really on how to manage
multiple classes, business management, debt management. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
It's not as pretty as it is for human
We could
medicine.
all live in Belize.
Yeah.
Fucking hide out from
I
there.
knew a doctor who was she was like the clinical supervisor at like a detox center. She had her doctorate in like all this crazy shit, and she would tell me how she lives in a trailer. She's
Yeah.
like, all my money goes
It's
to
tempting, trust me.
student loans.
I didn't go in for profit.
Yeah, you did it because you love animals.
That's a small sliver.
That's it. We love animals. Hey, you know what's fucking crazy, dude? I have always been interested in drugs. My whole life. Like, drugs, addiction. I remember being in high school, my first psychology class ever, asking, why do people get high? Like, why do people become addicts? And, like, that same thing. I remember being in college, and they're like, well, what do you want to do with your education degree? And I'm like, I want to know why people use drugs. And she's like, you should do, like, psychology as a minor, and you should do education as a major. And just, like, that whole curiosity just guided my whole fucking career, you know what I mean? So, yeah, if you love animals, just stick with it, because I don't feel like I'm working.
If I loved animals, I would do like a rescue agency. I mean, I do love animals, but my point is like, you can't, there's other professions that don't require nearly as much stress, sweat, tears, blood, and debt.
Yes, and I don't know what that is for you, but it's out there. I would have never imagined using my education degree to do what I'm doing today. Never, in a million years.
So, what's your debt? You said you told me.
What's my, I'm in like 80,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
That was my undergrad. I paid that off. Took me 10 years.
That's my undergrad. Yeah, it took me 10 years. Yeah, I was getting high that 10 years. Evading them, staying away. So I went to...
No Stafford loan left behind, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, I legit, when I figured out my dad's everything, and I hope he doesn't listen to this. I figured out my dad's everything, and I went on his account, because he co-signed my loans. So I went on his account, changed everything so that I would get the alerts of late payments.
We've heard about this trifling.
Oh, yeah.
Before.
Yeah,
I remember this.
Yeah, and I would be like getting high with my friends, and I'd get a call from Sally Mae, and I'd have to.
You literally thought you resolved something by doing that.
Dude.
Because you're in inactive addiction, you've now
Diverted.
done a cornerstone move, you know?
Ready? And when I get caught, I resent the authorities.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing? Why are you calling my dad? Dude, it's my fucking job. I'm a debt collector. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, I remember another story, resentment, right? One time, I was a BHT, and I never did rounds. I never did rounds as a behavioral health technician, dude. I just sat in the office, watched hockey, wrote stuff, listened to music, and that was it, dude. And one day, I'm randomly doing rounds. Like out of the fucking blue, I'm doing rounds, and I walk into this fucking room, and it smells like weed in there, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? And I'm looking around, and I look out, and on the back porch, there's two kids, just fucking clients, smoking fucking weed in the back porch, and I walk back, and I go, yo, what are you doing, dude? And first off, they tried to hand it to me. I'm like, yo, what are you doing, bro? And yeah, they go, ugh. And they're like, what? I go, what are you doing, bro? And they go, what are you doing? I go, what am I doing? They go, you never do rounds, bro. And I'm like, yo, are you serious, dude? You guys can't be using drugs. You're in rehab, dude. And they were trying to like turn the whole thing around on me, gaslighting, because I'm doing my rounds. Like I'm like, bro, you gotta stop. And they're like, you're not really gonna call so and so, are you? I'm like, yo, I gotta report this, dude. I can't. I'm not. Who are you, bro? You know what I mean? And they're mad at me. They think that me following protocol, is the wrong thing. That's not fair, Jimmy. You're supposed to find me doing drugs and not do anything about it.
Yeah, or that's not fair. You're the guy who never does the rounds. What the fuck?
Distorted belief
And
system.
then all of a sudden it's like the universe is really against this man because this guy never does rounds. We're just fucked. Let's just keep doing harder drugs. You know?
Yo! You following this? So it's intense, okay? So those may be motivations. How has my dishonesty contributed to this resentment? So how does your dishonesty in that moment, your evasiveness or whatever, how does that contribute to your resentment?
It keeps it from being resolved. Because if I just came out and said it and it's like, hey, I don't appreciate you accusing me without evidence, he would be like, okay. He might be like, oh, I'm sorry. He might have just, I don't know what he would have been thinking at that time, but he may not have known what he was doing and how it was affecting me. Mm-hmm. And so if I just straight up told him that I was like, hey, I don't appreciate when you do this, he may be like, okay, sorry, I won't do that anymore.
Mm. Anybody else? That's great.
Or you can pretend that it's not happening. Or just, like the guy is like, I can't believe this is happening right now.
It's like, believe it.
I mean, I can't believe
you're sober,
Jimmy's
Josh.
standing right here,
Head on.
right now.
Yes, fuckhead.
That I just got caught.
Yeah.
Smoking weed. I can't believe this. You just.
Now, how does dishonesty, like someone's in that situation, can't believe it, and they refuse to believe it, and they start to lie and try to lie and weasel their way out of it? How does that create more problems?
Because you start to justify your wrongdoings at that point.
Well, you start to resent yourself because you didn't meet the challenge head on. That's me, you know? I know I can duck out and come up with some creative language to probably alleviate the situation in the short term. But then I'll fucking sit there and stew about it. And then I'll probably end up having to initiate with somebody and to clear the air, you know?
And then the problem gets bigger.
Exactly.
It compounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what was once this small problem, it could have been fixed with a real quick, like, hey, I don't like when you do that. Or, hey, you know.
What's behind you constantly accusing me? Can you give me some bullet points as to why the fuck you're on my ass? You know?
Right.
In other language, you know what I mean? But
and what you may see is some people do that, but the anger and annoyance gets in the way of that being perceived. So you have moments where you're talking to these people, telling them the problem, but the anger and annoyance becomes the new problem.
yeah, like I'm angry and annoyed for Josh. So that's obviously telling me that something has happened in my past in this same vein that I need to take a look at. You know?
Right. Exactly.
Unjustified kind of like finger pointing, or you know what I mean?
Well, that's why I talk about the importance of the stimuli. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know what it is. It's my sister. It's all I got it now.
Right? I think for me is like what it mainly stems from is whenever I've been accused in the past and I actually have been using. So now that I'm not using and I'm being accused, it's bringing up those old feelings.
So it used to be fair treatment, and now it's unfair, but it feels fair.
Mm-hmm.
So
it feels familiar.
It feels
it's like I've been in the
vindicating
situation
what
before.
You did do almost. It's like, do I deserve this because I got away with the past? Or
Now imagine that. Do I deserve this? And people passive, and they keep on getting walked over. You see what I'm saying? And those things continuously happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to prevent like feeling that or hurting their feelings or whatever the case may be, so they never stick up for themselves, they continue to be dishonest or whatever the case may be. I would like to say everybody's doing a fantastic job right now. We're right where we're supposed to be. We have a couple questions left. All right, so everyone's right where you're supposed to be. For me, my dishonesty contributed to my resentment because the more I lie and evade and cheat, the worse my debt gets. The worse my relationship with my parents get. The worse my credit score becomes. The less I believe I have the capability of managing this debt. You see what I'm saying? Like, and then you see people like, there's people out there who see the weight of that amount of debt as impossible to pay, so they never begin or develop a plan because it's so scary to begin to tackle. And some people...
And I think just like with maybe Josh's situation, where I think initially some communication is going to be a big help resolve a lot of that. Same with Sally Mae, man. You fucking pick up the phone, you call them, you explain your situation, you get a little bit of rope, you get a little bit of slack, and you fucking do what you gotta do. You know?
And what happens when we do that?
Things work out.
You know, it's like when you do things like when you take a second and you're honest and you just talk to them. Like every time I call Sally Mae for a hardship, they're like, "We understand, no problem, sir. We're happy to help you out."
But
you know
you
what I
can
mean?
solve problems with communication.
Right. We've got to something today.
Okay, now, now there's two parts to this. It's either one or the other or both. How has my inability or unwillingness to experience certain feelings led me to develop resentments? So you feel the feeling that comes on, and you're either unwilling or unable to feel it, and that's why we respond this way. How has your inability or unwillingness to experience certain feelings led you to develop this resentment?
Yeah.
And what feeling is that? What feeling are you unable or unwilling to feel?
For me, it's like fear.
Fear? You see that?
Sometimes empathy for certain people for what they did. Or why they did it.
Fear, sympathy, yeah.
Shame, guilt.
Shame,
I want her eye.
guilt. Now, are you unwilling to feel it, or are you unable to feel it?
Unwilling. Unable.
There was a time where I was unable to feel empathy. Empathy is required for forgiveness. If I can't feel empathetic for someone, I may not be able to authentically forgive them. You see what I'm saying? And if I am unable, my dad used to say, he thought I was a literal psychopath, bro. He'd be like, "Don't you feel bad? Like, don't you, feel things?" And I'm like, "No." Because I literally, work really hard to not feel those feelings. If I feel that feeling, then I'm not gonna get high.
Dad, it costs a lot of money to not be able to feel things. You know?
Yeah, you know what I mean? I got a lot of feelings I gotta hide here, right? I'm unable. If I don't even have the ability, and some people have the ability, they're just unwilling to do it. I can forgive this person. I don't want to. Fuck them. You see what I'm saying? I could let it go, but I don't want to. I like it. You know, it's like, whoa, okay.
You know, there are the people who say, I'm forgiving this person not for them, but for me, so I can move on. Do you consider that genuine forgiveness?
Say that one more time.
So there are a lot of times, I'm going to give a really lame example, but say, you're watching a crime show, and it's the family members of someone who was murdered, they're like, I forgive the murderer, not for them, but I'm doing it for me so I can move on.
Were you not in here?
She was not in
Okay.
here.
We talked about this for 20 minutes.
Example.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was watching.
I'm sorry. I know you're good.
But I would say that's yeah, you want to forgive that person. You want to release that resentment. And let's just, real quick, how does someone who has the ability and willingness to let that go, how do they benefit from that?
It absolves them of resentments and negative feelings that they might take out on other people or themselves.
If they hang on to that,
It gets the poison out.
how might that impact their lives if they hang on to that?
Nothing good. Yeah, resentment, anger.
And you bring up the poison. Has anybody ever heard having a resentment is like drinking the poison and waiting for the other person to die?
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yep. And that's what happened when you went to the bar and you got
Oh,
mad.
yeah. Oh,
You-
shit,
you
yeah.
drank the- I'm gonna
I
show
was
them.
trying to
Let me go
show
get
this.
fucking drink this poison.
You
You
know?
know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know. That was, and
But you were like in your 20. You
I
were
was 21. I
So
was
that's what we
active.
do when we're 21.
21.
You know?
Now,
I was
if
like,
you-
I can go straight to this bar, excuse myself, and fuck that.
Yeah. Now, having the ability to, now this is where it's important to be a warrior in a garden instead of gardener in a war, okay? Having the ability and willingness to feel these feelings is required in the resentment. If you, an inability or unwillingness to feel fear causes us to find something outside of ourselves to change it. Instead of just feeling the feeling and making the healthy decision and saying, I'm scared, but I shouldn't be scared. You know what I mean? I don't want to be sympathetic for this person. I don't know if I can, but I have to try. You see what I'm saying? Like, having the ability to do it is what's important here.
You know what? One thing that helps me is when I'm feeling the feeling that I don't want to feel. I used, and it took me years to figure this out, but it's not gonna last forever. This feeling, you know. And if I can just not pick up during this little short fucking blip of uncomfortability, bro, I'm gonna fucking get stronger. By the end of today, when I lay my head on the pillow, I'm gonna be a better version of myself because I didn't fucking pick up over some feeling that I didn't want to feel. You know. That's it, bro. And then you stack those up, and you got something.
And then again, your character, your mental and moral quality begins to change as a result of that. That now, if I don't have the ability to be sympathetic, if I don't have the willingness to do that, you see what I'm saying? That's where problems can come. If I'm unable or unwilling to do those things, then I could get into a pattern of not doing them, you know. And when I actually need it, I don't have it because you need those things. So if I'm not feeling them, then I'm not gonna know when I need it, when it's appropriate, when it makes sense, when it doesn't make sense, and then I'm not gonna feel confident within myself, my own decision making. And you see what I'm saying? And that could be a little rocky when we're out there trying to stay sober. So you want to have a foundation of who you are. Now the foundation we're building right now may be like, oh fuck, this doesn't feel good. I gotta take ownership all this.
Everything's magnified in early recovery. Every feeling is a fucking gargantuan thing, you know?
That's where detox was so valuable for me because my trigger for drinking is anxiety, number one. And there was one night where my anxiety was like a 9 or 10 out of 10. And I knew and it was the first time I had a craving, and it was a horrible craving, but I was like, okay, I don't have a choice right now. Like, technically, yes, but like, I have to sit in here and feel this. And it, like you said, I told myself, feelings are transient. Like, I talked to my friends about it. And I woke up the next day and I felt better. And it built up this, like, layers of self-confidence that, like, I don't have to do that. I'm not going to die if I don't, quell my anxiety with alcohol. And so each time I did that, it made it stronger and stronger to where, like, you're able to make that causal relationship. Anxiety, want to drink. Feel the feeling, goes away. And, like, each time now it happens and I'm just like, oh, well, that sucks. But, like, I'll feel better tomorrow. So it is a powerful, and, like, it does promote self-confidence, whereas I didn't have any before. I thought I was just a victim to the bottle. So.
And you can see how literally when you don't have that, it's not that great. No. And when you do have it, it's better. You see what I'm saying? Like, having the emotion may not feel all that great, but the ability to feel the emotion and make healthy decisions is a lot better than feeling the emotions and not making healthy decisions or not feeling the emotion at all. Now, these emotions are so important because you're talking about all these emotions we're going to look at serve a purpose. Your resentment serves the purpose to keep you from being treated unfairly. And you don't want to, like, it's like, you don't want to be a victim. And this prevents you from becoming a victim. You know what I mean? Now, what this is doing is changing us from, like, victim to, like, owning our past, owning our choices, and owning our decisions, and trying to make healthier ones moving forward. And the solution to doing that may be a lot better than not doing it. You see what I'm saying? And that's where steps 1 and 2 come in. It's like, well, I could keep on feeling this way and clearly this isn't serving me, or I could go this other way and try to overcome my resentments, feel them, and behave a different way. And you have a stimuli to give that you know when it's going to be prompted. Like, yours is going to be prompted when that motherfucker comes up to you. Student loans, they're going to be prompted. You know what I mean? Like, these ideas, these things that happen, something in the external is going to make us feel this feeling. I'm the one who has to learn what it means to feel this feeling, and the initial feeling may not be resentment. I mean, you're looking at anger. Anger is a secondary emotion. So that means that this resentment is secondary to fear, to sympathy, to shame. You see what I'm saying? How have you cheated yourself as a result of your resentment? How have you cheated yourself as a result of your resentment?
Well, you've caused yourself.
Or how has my behavior contributed? Sorry, that's the question. How has my behavior contributed to my resentments?
Reinforcing.
Definitely. Especially the way that you were describing it. Like, when you don't share it, that behavior contributes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It makes that resentment stronger, right? When I don't pay my student loans, it gets worse and worse, right? Am I afraid of looking at my part in the situations that cause my resentments?
Of course.
Why?
And I have to take responsibility for it.
Because then you might come to the realization that your part, the other person really didn't do anything wrong.
And it's you.
And it's all fucking you.
If you know better, you do better. You're supposed to. So denial's nice because you don't have to change.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for my part was, well, it's kind of halfway, because I was technically late for giving my UA, but for most of the day I was at a meeting or I was giving Darius a ride back home from work. But I also wasn't aware that there was a time cutoff and that I was supposed to do it at like a certain time, because if I had known that before, I would have avoided the situation altogether.
Because they probably didn't do a proper orientation.
No, they didn't.
There's a time cutoff for that?
Yeah, because for
Oh.
yeah, because
Were you not here?
Sorry, guys. I missed a lot.
Am I afraid of looking at my part in the situations that cause my resentment?
Well, obviously Josh isn't.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One for me, honestly, while I have a lot towards people, I have one to like resentment towards just kind of like societal construct in itself. And there, like when I was younger, I tried to rebel against that a lot. You know, like living a normal life, just basic shit like that. And it's hard for me to look back and realize that I didn't take the time to find a good career path or figure out what I actually wanted to do, because I was rejecting that kind of thing so much, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, like you said, how, even though it wasn't the right question, you're like, how did my behavior
Contribute to my resentments.
Yeah, so like I think about that because it's all on me, you know. Nobody made me think that way. So
Is there a part of that past or your behavior that you don't like looking at?
I mean, it makes me think about just like how I didn't try in school and didn't give a fuck about college, and when ultimately I didn't really have a choice. I needed to do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be able to be a good part of the society, which I can't get away from without having tried that. So it sucks looking back on that.
Is it scary to think like that you might have to conform a little bit to
Totally.
fucking
Yeah.
get
sucks.
with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to, you know. Need money.
What is a part of you that needs to be conformed that you like do not want to let go of? And I say conform, but just like a part of you that you don't want to let go of,
I mean,
that you think might have to go. Like cursing for me, I don't want to let it go, but I
Sure.
fucking got to, dude. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of them. I guess like keep putting tattoos on my face, gonna keep making it harder, shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good, yeah.
Yeah. Because that was a big way to rebel against making sure I didn't end up living that normal lifestyle. Like,
There was some serious accountability there you put on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. And does that like, are there times that you avoid that realization? You know what I mean? Like everybody may have like, I don't mean to, pick on you, but everybody probably has parts of them that they're afraid to fucking let go of.
Sure.
And, how has, like what's so scary about letting it go? What's so scary about conforming? What's so scary about...
Yeah. It's just decisions that you made that you feel like are things that define who you are to an extreme extent. That if you let it go, you don't know who you'll be or like what people will think about you.
Dude.
It's like,
There's
you
that
created
fear.
this identity, and now all of a sudden, and you're 28 years old, like, fuck, I gotta change it.
Right.
Yo.
And that's like, bro, I've already put in fucking a lot of fucking time on this one.
It's time. You spent all this time to try to conform to something that you thought was right at that time. Now that you're changing because you got older and you got wiser and you got sober and you're realizing, oh, well now I'm gonna have to do X, Y, Z in order to succeed in society and to be a member of society. You just feel like you put all this time and energy into something that you're gonna now have to take and transfer and put time and energy into something else.
And it's like, I've spent all this, great, thank you for saying that. I've spent all this time avoiding it, and now I have to jump into it. Now I have to like learn about it. And that's the crazy thing. Like, say someone in here is a victim. You know what I mean? Like, now I have to learn. Like not saying it's victim, but the cancer thing, right? Like, now I have to learn how to like be this person, dude. Now I have to fucking learn how these people who are victims made it through this. Now I have to learn how do people like me get out of this fucking situation.
It's like, now I've got to read these fucking books. Like, how to like help your family cope with your cancer.
Steps 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Do you want to turn your will over to it? Or do you want to live in self-will? Obstinately doing what one wants, despite the wishes and orders of others. I wish you'd stop getting tattoos. I'm sure people said that to you.
Yeah.
I wish you'd stop giving me relationship advice. I wish you'd do this, do that. And it's like, okay. I need to turn my will over to the wishes and orders of others, And maybe it's reluctant. Like, people may be reluctantly wanting to turn these things over.
And if you're turning them over, you can always take them back.
Oh, you can.
That's the thing about turning things over. It's like, all right, I'll try this. Let's fucking give it the good old-fashioned college try. And if it doesn't work out, I can pick up my bullshit and walk out.
Yep. Exactly. Like and that's the thing. Like, until you fully accept it happened, there's no opportunity to fix it.
It's like your mopping thing. It's like, you're like, when you're in that fucking wrong perspective, you're like, I'm gonna have to be a mopper forever. Dude, you could. It's just it's a thing,
It's a stepping stone, man.
All moving.
And everybody's like, these fucking resentment, this 4th step, bro. Just fucking write it down. Just keep it moving, dude. Just do the questions. Just stop getting tattoos. You don't gotta fucking conform. You just gotta, and that's why the 4th step is so important. Imagine getting to, now, I'm sorry to pick on you, but imagine getting to the 4th step and you have all these tattoos and you are just coming to this realization and now you have made all these decisions in recovery, dude. And you resent yourself for the decisions you made in recovery, dude. That's why you don't want to sit on these. You don't want to fucking let time pass, because this is valuable information that you need to prevent you from making more bad decisions, dude.
Kevin, the guy who is our rep at Salesforce,
Yeah.
he's like he's like top Atlanta guy in Salesforce, and he's got more tattoos on his face than you do, bro.
Sweet.
So don't think that it's like this society now. 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
might have been a little bit rougher, but now, the guy's fucking like, he's an IT guy, he's doing great. I don't know if that's your thing, technology,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
you're a fashion guy or whatever, but, you know, just don't even, you know.
Now, how have your resentments affected your relationships with other people? Like, how do other people get affected by your resentment?
I think when people have resentments, they often hold a lot of anger, and if you don't know how to properly channel that anger and aggression or grief or whatever it is that you're bottling inside, it like pushes on to other people. Like you don't understand how much of your own energy like affects other people per se. And I don't think, back to what Kayla was saying earlier, I don't think forgiving someone or letting go of your resentment, it doesn't mean it dissipates. Like, it's always going to be there in the back of your mind. Like, whatever happened to me, it's always going to bother me. It's always, like, someone asks me, well, why doesn't that make you mad? Why how can you just say, well, because that's that person or that substance or whatever that's still controlling me. So me getting mad and going and picking up a bottle, I'm still being controlled by that resentment. And if I'm trying to get to the top, how am I going to get to the top if I'm still at the bottom? It's like trying to be at stair 1 and jumping up to stair 12. That's not going to happen. But for you, it's not like you're saying, like when you come to acknowledge your resentments, it's not like you're saying they don't exist and that your feelings were never valid, because they're still going to be there and they're always going to be valid, but it's how you channel it and how you interpret it in your own mind, and then that way that channels out into your other relationships and your perspectives on them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I also think we tend to project our resentment onto others. So it's just a silly example, but say like you've been cheated on before, you get into a new relationship, you have trust issues, you might question up someone else's intentions when they had no intention of being disloyal, but it's like you still hold that resentment that festers, a lack of trust, anger. You project onto the next person who might have nothing to do with the situation.
They take that on, they start believing that, and then their behavior changes. Yo, I have my sister, there's this one kid that she hates. She hates this kid. She's never met this kid. She fucking hates this kid, right? She was roommate with this girl in sober living who was dating this kid, and all she did was talk about how poorly the kid treated her, right? And my sister developed this resentment having never met the person. Just based upon
Hearsay resentment?
Hearsay, right. So now she's like, blah, 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 and he's like, well, fuck him then. You know what I mean? And now she's never met the guy. And I mean, I know him, he's a great guy. I'm sure, they would fucking have a funny conversation if they got to know each other, but she's bent on, nope, fuck him, dude. And that's one way that my resentment can impact another person. Another way, I see people who may have like poor relationship with their parents, and when you share a good relationship with your parent, I get upset. You know what I mean? And I like, instead of like enjoying your relationship, I kind of shut it down, or whatever the case may be. You see what I'm saying? And how does that impact another person? Even you ever have the situation where someone's like, oh, hey, do you know that kid Ben? And you're like, Ben? I fucking hate Ben. And they're like, Ben's one of my best friends. And you're like, oh, Ben's a great guy. What do you mean?
He's
I
all
love Ben.
right, but
Oh, that Ben. Yeah. Oh, I was thinking of this other Ben. You see what I'm saying?
What about when somebody you love and care for is treated badly by someone else, and that someone else has never done anything to you, but you can't stand that somebody else?
Yep,
They even walk the face of the earth.
Maybe I am contributing to their helpless belief system in that situation. So maybe I truly believe that they can let it go, but because I have a resentful mindset and they believe they can let it go, I instill that on them, and now they're resentful and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
No.
So, for instance, maybe my own resentment can be forced upon someone else who may not even have had the resentment. So maybe they had a great way of dealing with some sort of situation, and my resentment advice, like I give them advice.
I might have perceived it incorrectly.
There-
It might
so-
not be as bad as
For
it
instance,
looks.
they're like, yeah, they cheated on me. You know, I think I'm just gonna move on and go find another person. And you're like, no, just move on, find another person. Go stab fucking holes in their tires. What is wrong with you? They fucked you over, and now my own, interpretation of that situation, and then that person's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do that, and they go do it. You know what I mean? I'm the one who put that belief into them
I see what you're saying.
based upon my
It's a
own
big resentment party, you know?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Yeah, like I had a girlfriend that I treated like shit, and then she did fucked up things to me because I deserved it, and my mom is like, fuck her, she's she's awful. Like, what are you doing with her?
Yep.
And I'm like, well,
Evading
I fucked
information.
up.
Right?
Mhm.
Evading information, not telling the whole truth. If they were to tell the whole truth, maybe they'd be on their side.
Right.
You see, maybe it would be fair treatment. So, you gotta...
Well, and I also feel like,
Go
sorry,
ahead. No, you're
we
go
hold
ahead.
resentment for other people. Like my mom, for instance, like based off some things that happened to me, she's always like, or even my sister, how could you ever like live with that person or whatever? Like that's so disgusting. Like they're a disgusting human. Like how are you just okay with getting up and like not acting like it didn't happen, but I guess finding your peace with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's
Well,
sick is when you
now
start to
the resentment that I had for so long and that I was so angry about, it projected onto other people, but now those people don't know how to let it go.
Or it's sick, then you start to defend the person that did shit to you that you actually kind of resent, but other people took the resentment to a whole nother level, so now you're fucking playing defense for them, you know?
Yeah.
Saying, well, it was kind of my fault, I did some shit too. And you're like, no, fuck that, that and you're just like defend, and then you're like,
Yeah.
then that's done, and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Dude. Bro, one time I went to my friends and I'm like, this fucking kid did this and yada yada yada, and they're all like, let's egg the shit out of his house, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it, not thinking we're really gonna do it, and it's like happening. It's like going to someone and being like, man, I just want to get fucking high, and they're like, me too. And they're like, and then all of a sudden we're on our way to get high, and I don't want to fucking do this. You know what I mean? And like, but it's like, now, do I do it? You know what I mean? And we ended up egging that kid's house, so we egged the shit out of it. And the whole time I'm like, damn man, I don't even know if this is true. I don't even know, you know what I mean? But we gotta do it, dude. Now we're in it. So,
Now eggs are like $7 a fucking piece,
yeah,
so you
for
don't do
real,
that
bro.
anymore.
So you can imagine how this resentment can impact your relationship with other people. How can it impact your relationship with yourself? So if you have these resentments, they can impact your relationship with yourself. You start to you lose self-worth, self-esteem, passiveness, so on and so forth. It can also how can it impact your relationship with a higher power? So if you have these deep resentments, how can that impact?
You're a clenched fist, not an open hand.
Thinking like, going back to the idea of this is just another thing in the line of negative things that happens to me. I start to think that like my God is spiteful and like wants me to be in pain and this and that. So now the question is, what reoccurring themes do you notice in your resentments?
Fear.
What reoccurring themes do you notice in your resentments? Fear,
Misunderstanding.
misunderstanding, shame. Mine's lack of response, I just don't like responsibility, dude. I just don't want it.
Sometimes, I was thinking about what you were saying. Like a lot of times, you hate it when people go, "Well, you're being hella immature," and then it's like, when you're fucking in active addiction, you don't even have the power to be mature. You know what I mean? So it's like, for then you start to resent people like, "You're immature." No, I was fucking in active addiction, man. You know? Now it's like, if I don't clean up my shit, maybe there's a little bit of something to that. But but then for years, people are like, "You're just fucking immature. You're not taking care of shit."
Yeah.
Bro, I'm fucked up.
Yeah. And so now, okay. Now let's imagine the next time you're going to feel fear, feel lack of communication, right? Feel shame and guilt. That is the feeling that you need to start trying to identify, building a relationship with, and starting to understand, right? And when you do feel it, you need to respond in a new way. You may respond the same way. You know what I'm saying? So don't think that when you feel this feeling, you're immediately going to respond in this new way. For me, it's going to be whoa. Usually when I identify I fucked up, it's after the fact, in hindsight, and I'm like, oh man, I should have done this differently, you know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be. That's exactly what you should be doing at the end of your day with that 10-step daily inventory that I'm talking about to prevent more resentments from occurring. But in the time, you want to start to build a relationship with what do you feel when you're treated unfairly so you can identify the emotion instead of being confused about it or acting and behaving erratically or whatever the case may be. So when I feel resentment, I find myself disgusted. I think negatively about the past, and I see no hope for the future. So for me, when I think about something that immediately makes me I feel like I'm treated unfairly, I try to make sense of it, adjust my perspective based upon people who have what I want, right? So the people who are adjusting my perspective are provoking it in a healthy manner. They're not provoking in a negative manner. You see what I'm saying? So I want my provoking to be from someone who has what I want, who may have the ability to let go of their anger, who may not be resentful and to hold on to grudges and things like that. So that might be the type of person that I want to go to when learning about letting go of this resentment. But identifying the feeling or the circumstance, the mood or the relationship. So if you can retrospectively know, I resent my mother-in-law, can't stand her. I know when I see her, I'm gonna feel this way. So I take proactive measures to prevent it. And when the moment comes where she does do something that makes me resentful, it's not this big tragedy, it's a comedy, dude. And I laugh about it. I'm like, yo, that is so fucking her, dude. Oh my God, bro. And my response to her is different. You see what I'm saying? And I'm a little bit lighter on my feet and able to talk to her and open that line of communication. But if I'm like, oh, she fucking did it again.
Because you got geared up knowing that you'd see her,
So that's the power of knowing these things that cause the emotion and the power of just taking a break, phoning a friend, talking to someone. And if you don't have the ability to do that, that's where the power greater than yourself comes in. Because having the ability to do this and the willingness to do this is important. So you need both of those when overcoming this. Now, that is resentment. That is the the resentment inventory. We have 6 more of these to go through. So for the next 3 weeks to 4 weeks, you're going to constantly be seeing themes of emotions.
And we're all in step 4 this whole next 3 weeks.
Yes. Yep. And this is like the content of the class.
I'm in step 4. Trust me, it's been 3 weeks that I've been in it.
Yeah.
And the other ones were 1 week.
And this is, I mean, is this helpful in understanding where you're at?
Yeah, because I'm working with my sponsor on this same stuff, but this is like deep dive shit.
Yeah, this is real deep dive shit. I do a real deep dive with you guys. So, but that is that. So next week, Thursday, when I come back, we're doing feelings.
Oh, feelings.
So feelings is going to be a broad spectrum, but the hope is from like discussing feelings, we identify one feeling in particularly that we have trouble feeling or we enjoy changing or suppressing. So
Yeah, it's fear.
that is the discussion we're going to have. Great job today, everybody. Fantastic work.
it's
And I will see you guys on Thursday.
Gosh.